Coming up on Man Enough. How do we hold each other accountable as men when we see other men do things of this nature?
In the case of Diddy, I obviously don't know him personally, but I'm guessing that when a man acts that way towards a woman, he's probably acting in ways towards men in ways that are also abusive.
His apology says something to the nature of, I was at a low point in my life. I've been at many low points in my life. You don't abuse somebody.
Being man enough, what does that mean?
It's really manly to mess up, admit you're wrong, and then grow.
I couldn't accept that I was evil. So maybe I'm broken, but those broken things could be corrected.
Intimacy between a father and a son is me just wanting to put my head in your lap.
I love you, son.
You haven't called me benevolent sexist, but my experience is women are better.
Even if it's a positive, it's still not equality.
I don't blame men for that. I just blame the system.
This
Is
Man Enough.
Hey, Liz.
Hi, Jamey.
What's up? Welcome back to the Man Enough podcast. I'm Jamey Heath.
I'm Liz Plank.
And you're back for another episode. We are two of the hosts. Our third is Justin Baldoni. He's not with us. I know many of you miss him, as we do. He's with us in spirit. Liz, we talk about a lot of different things
We do.
on our show. Most of the time we have guests with us.
Yeah.
But we're just doing you and I.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about something. Let's get into it.
Let's dig in.
I don't want to make this about the actual person, but maybe rather the larger issue. To give it some context, P. Diddy Combs has been cited, or it's clear there's video of him abusing a woman. Cassie, I believe is her name. And it's causing an uproar, as it should. This woman was wrongfully, brutally, terribly hurt by someone that a lot of people look up to. I mean, even if he's not looked up to, it's terrible. But when someone's in the spotlight and has fans and has kids watching him and people want to be like, and has a lot of years in this world, it's just horrific. So we thought we would talk about the impact of that.
Yeah.
Again, not necessarily about him, because I don't want to have this platform be about him, but rather men that behave like him.
Yeah.
And the impact it has.
Right.
Because if we talk about it too long in him, I will find myself behaving in a way that's not pleasant in words towards him.
Mm-hmm.
When a woman is touched in anybody, but in this case, when a woman who has physically less power typically than a man is treated like an animal, I mean, we have to address it.
Mm-hmm.
We have to stop it. One podcast is not going to stop it.
Yeah. But what was your reaction to it when you saw it?
Oh, my stomach was in knots. I mean, you watch it and you see someone thrown to the ground, and then it, elicits feelings of disgust. And then you see her kicked and treated like you don't treat animals unless you're a psychopath. And again, I'm being really mindful because I don't want to be I don't want to get into that, but that's what it is. And then I thought about my daughter or my wife or someone who I love, a woman being treated that way, and elicit feelings of what would I do? How would I respond? So then it got me thinking, how are we supposed to respond as men when we see other men do things of this nature?
Yeah.
A lot of people, not as many, I think, as before, have been defending the individual. More people are not, because video don't lie.
He issued an apology
he issued
video.
an apology, which for many is falling on deaf ears, which is completely reasonable.
Well, he doesnesn't really take
Doesn't fully take accountability, but I don't know. I don't want to begin to think of what the thinking was behind that. But before we get to the apology, or what do we do about this as men? How do we hold each other accountable? What is the proper outlet? Look, there are times when we feel anger. There are times when I've been in an argument with a partner that I can feel feelings of discomfort and need to take a breath. It's very different than putting my hands on somebody. aggressively yelling at, even if it's just emotionally. All that stuff is not okay. But there are times we have feelings. So what do we do with those feelings? What's the proper outlet? That is not it. Absolutely not. How do we prevent men from behaving that way? And then how do we, when we do, hold ourselves accountable? How do I stop that? How do I cite for another man to see and realize and recognize, like, that is so terrible, but how close have I come to that? Not me personally, but whoever that individual is listening. How far away am I from that? What could be the trigger that I ever could become that? And how do we stop ourselves from feelings of discomfort and rage and actual acting on it?
Right.
My thought is we cannot, my first instinct is I'd beat his ass. That happened to my daughter. I would beat his ass. And I don't know when I would stop. Touch my daughter. But the problem is, if I were to react, then now I'm making the situation worse, because now I've reacted. I've done something to avenge my daughter, only for me to then be convicted and spend time in prison or jail or whatever. And now my daughter's got a second problem, which is now I'm no longer with her. Now she's worried about me. And then if she were sexually or physically abused, I want her to feel safe to tell me. And I know that historically, women don't oftentimes tell their parents, or specifically their fathers, because of fear that their father will beat their ass. So they don't tell them. So I went back with my daughter one time many years ago and let her know that if anything ever happened to you, you can always tell me and know that I won't retaliate, so that she would feel safe to tell me and not worry about what I would do. So that's, one thing I know I can do. And then also, how do I talk to men and say to the world and to people, not just to shame people, because everyone's just going to be like, people who don't hurt women are going to be like, yes, sir, Jamey. The people that do are just going to be defensive.
Yeah.
How do we reach the people that could
and
have them not?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, just to come back also to, I think, this really important point that you're making, which is, how men tend to react to violence against women, men's violence against women. And again, this idea that you would, kill this guy or beat up this guy, that's still about you, right? Like that does nothing to protect my daughter or your friend or spouse. And actually that is you. It's you regulating your own feelings about how you're feeling about the thing. You're not actually checking in with her to see what would help her, right? And I think that is something that, and again, I'd never really thought about it until you brought it up, that I was like, right, like I don't think, and I know personally a lot of women who do not tell their fathers about things that have happened to them.
Out of fear that the father would react.
Fear, yes. Not necessarily that he would go out and kill them or beat them up, but even that they would be so upset that then it would be additional pain that they don't want to bring onto their father, but then second of all, that they're going to have to deal with. Right? Because then he's upset and then I'm going to have to sort of manage it. And so now we've taken the spotlight off of my trauma and the violence that I've, experienced, and we're treating, your feelings about it. And those become more important. And at the same time, I totally get it. As someone, sure. I mean, I'm not a man, and there are women in my family who have been severely abused. And when I think about what I would do to the men, the men who did that to them, I have the same sort of impulse that you do. But yeah, I think for men, it's like, how do you prevent, particularly with Diddy, again, not to make it all about him, but the amount of men who were around him who knew what was happening and who did nothing, who enabled him to the point where it got that bad. And that's the one thing we've seen, right? Like, as we know, they're probably even worse. And just based on a lot of reporting, the things that have gone on around this man and this man has done probably go far beyond what we saw in that 10-second tape. But to me, it's like, what were the men doing? Why did they let it get to that point where, yeah, maybe if they'd seen what he did to Cassie, then they would intervene. But why aren't you intervening before that? Before it gets to that point? Because if you really do want to protect women, that challenging men when they're talking, in ways that are degrading to women.
It's so tricky, though, Because, yes,
Yeah.
don't disagree.
That's how you prevent violence, you know?
It's tricky because you have someone who's in a position of power, who's paying people's bills. It's your job. It's your livelihood. You see something that may not be that, but you see some tendencies. All right, am I going to go to my boss and what do I do? We should say something, but this is now. I've got a family. I've got to uphold. Some of them may be people that do that kind of behavior themselves as well. So them, you're not expecting any sort of different behavior. But many probably are not. I'm sure there's some decent people around him for sure. I know people that are in that camp that I've worked with over the many, many years in the music world that I imagine are not privy or part of this. Because they're not with them every single day. There's plenty of people that have behavior behind closed doors that you don't know about until you know about it. So you learn about it, and by the time it becomes like that, you have now slowly a slow burn, like a slow boil. At first you were like, that's not okay, but it's nothing really, at least in their mind, horrific. And then it finally gets there, and then that is what breaks the camel's back. Are we willing to sacrifice our own comfort for the betterment of another?
Mm-hmm.
Am I willing to lose my job when I see my boss do horrific things? And when I witness it, am I willing to step away from it and say, I want no part of this, even though now it means my livelihood could change? I think a lot of people are faced with that.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes with men, to call another man out, even though we should be calling him in. But in this case, I'm not trying to call someone that's beating up a woman, like call you in. I'm like about to stop you and call you out.
Yeah.
But I know by doing that, I'm exposing myself as well. How do we manage that? I think the more that we have reverence for each other, for women, that you see women as elevated beings and not as an object, not as an animal, not as a plaything for you. And oftentimes in that culture of being famous, getting everything that you want, having so much money, being in the public eye, you're used to getting everything that you want, and women oftentimes are playthings. How do we see women differently that we would never stand for it?
Mm-hmm.
Like if it was a child, most of those people would have stood up. Most people would be like, you can't.
You would hope. I mean,
I think most people probably would.
R.
You'd see a
Kelly.
7-year-old and you'd be like, what the hell are you doing, dude? And you'd say something and it would come out.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently they didn't see women as valuable as that to stand by it. I don't know. I don't know what the method is exactly. And then we have to keep having conversations. I think we have to train our young boys to see women, to see themselves as gentle creatures and not violent creatures, to see the damage that it does, to have a reverence for life and for humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So that when they do become 15, to give them outlets to express their discomfort and their rage and whatever it might be, what's the appropriate ways to do it? We're not teaching our young boys as much to do that. I do think that there are programs that are doing it well, but generally speaking, there's not. So that when we see a man behave that way, or when you have a tendency within you to do something, that we can curb it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's education and highlighting it, having conversations like right now. So the people who are listening, who are looking at this stuff and defending him, are that many people defending him, really? Not many. Defending the action, not even making it about him, defending the action of a man who kicks a woman while she's lying in the ground in a fetal position?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's gets at the crux of it, right? Which is, I think we're easy to condemn men's violence against women when we see it, but we don't necessarily, we don't then believe in consequences for it, right? So there's a man running for president who I don't need to name, who has been accused by like the equivalent of a baseball team, of women to have engaged in all kinds of different sexual misconduct, who has bragged about, sexually assaulting women. And it's all caught on tape and we all know. And he's polling, at 50% right now, if even in.
Do you think those people dismiss what the allegations are against him, or they don't believe it? And therefore, I'm still pulling for this individual because I think it's fake news, or that it's out of context. So therefore, they're like, I'm not. Or do you think, I believe that he did these things and I don't care and I'm still on his team?
I mean, interestingly, I was on the campaign trail for 2016 and I went to a Trump rally that was for women, Trump for Women. a few days before the election. And at the time, 7 out of 10 women had a, unfavorable view of Donald Trump. And so I went and asked women, what would you say to women? 7 out of 10 women have an unfavorable view of Donald Trump. What would you say to those women? And one woman's answer really stuck with me, where she said, I think 7 out of 10 women have an unfavorable view of a lot of men. So I'm still going to vote for him, right? Like this idea that the bar is so low for what we expect from men in our society that even women will want to put this person in power, even though he is, a violent person towards women. Because the expectation is that most men are like that, right? Which like,
so do
I
you
don't
think
it's
that that the same amount of women that are voting for that or on that team would also, do you think women would also vote for Harvey Weinstein? That they would vote for Bill Cosby? That they would vote for R. Kelly?
I think I think if they were charismatic and good on TV, yeah. Harvey Weinstein's conviction was overturned. Bill Cosby's conviction was overturned. Bill Cosby is not in jail.
Yeah.
100 women. 100 women for Harvey Weinstein and 60 for Bill Cosby.
How we treat men who do horrible things to women.
Yes.
But my question is, if you surveyed 100 women, would they say, would you vote for Harvey Weinstein to be the president of the United States?
If Harvey Weinstein, was the Republican nominee, basically to answer your question, are they ignoring it, or do they just think that it's okay? I think it's a little bit of both. I think that there's a part, and by the way, we all do this with the men in our lives, right? Mm-hmm. Not all the men, but every woman has done this with at least one guy in her life where she says, what I'm seeing is not good. But if I take that fully in, I can't keep my job. I can't keep my kids or my relationship or my marriage. So I'm just going to kind of disassociate.
Sure, that's right.
And, either be in total denial about it so that I can survive, or I'm going to believe that it must not be true, right? That there must be a mistake, that the person who told me about this must be lying. And even to take this one step further, I think when we blame women, right, which is common for sexual violence, right, I think in Diddy's case, it's so clear that she did nothing. She's literally running away from him. But so often, but even then we say, well, why did she stay with him? Why did she keep dating him, right?
Yeah, right.
I think that even some women will buy into victim blaming and blaming women, because then it means, well, if women who are beat up by men, it was their fault, that they deserve it, it means it won't happen to me, right? It's a kind of a self-protection to believe in misogynistic ideas.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I think in the same way, you tell me, but I think the lies that were fed around police violence, right? Or, that if he had, if a black man who's shot by the police, if he hadn't, gone out of his car, if he had showed his hands, then it wouldn't have happened. When it's like, well, look at the proportion. And it's very, maybe comforting to believe that that's true, but it won't protect you.
Yeah, I just wonder, it's interesting to me that I would hope, and yet I understand the complexity of it and what you just shared, that if I surveyed 100 random women, if Harvey Weinstein was running for president and he was the Republican or Democratic nominee, would you vote for him? I would hope that all of them, but at least 90% of them would be like, of course not. Because they believe what he did. They believe the allegations to be true. And no, I would not put him to represent the country or represent me in any way. So then I think, since I believe that has to be the case, then they must not see, and I'm not advocating one way or another for Trump, even though it's not my cup of tea. But if a lot of women are on that side, they must not believe it. If a lot of people are defending Diddy, they must not believe it, because how could you believe it?
Yeah.
And then ignore it, which is what we see all the time.
You can believe anything you want. Right? Like, you've done it, maybe less than the average person because you're securely attached or whatever. You're like healthier than most people, I think. But like, I feel like, I was in a relationship that was violent, and I used a lot of different, I mean, not used. I didn't know I was doing it, but there are a lot of different things. First of all, it never just starts with one day he punches you, right? Like it's a long
and you love
series.
And you love the person.
You love the person by the time they're doing it. And there's a long emotional and physical abuse go hand in hand. And so there's a lot of things that happen emotionally to bring you down to the point where if it does happen, you would blame yourself, right?
Yeah, right.
I told myself so many lies, and I believed so many lies that I was being told by the person, by the perpetrator, because I couldn't be, I couldn't, it's very, I mean, again, for anyone who's been in that position, it's very debilitatingly disorienting to be loved by someone who is hurting you.
So, but what you're saying there gives me sense that why an individual who's being abused or in an abusive relationship, why they may forgive or self-preserve.
Yeah.
I get that, how to navigate it. In your case, what you just mentioned, but if there was another person that's not the one that you also have feelings for, that's entangled with love and betrayal, and now it's another man who's running or doing something, do you ignore their behavior towards others? Because now it's not self-preservation, or is it?
Well, I think a lot of people, love and care about Donald Trump, and a lot of people love and care about Diddy. I think that, yes, these are parasocial relationships, but they're cults, and we have a cult also of we really, coming back to sort of not only do we not hold men who are like this accountable, we reward them, right? We reward men who are extremely uncaring and who get to where they're at by hurting people and by abusing people and by lying and stealing and all of that, right?
Yeah.
Like, which is again, in the case of Diddy, I obviously don't know him personally, but I'm guessing that when a man acts that way towards a woman, he's probably acting in ways towards men in ways that are also abusive and, different. But it's rare that it's just contained to that. And so, to answer your question, I guess, yeah, sure, they're not in a relationship with him.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people are attached to the idea that they have of famous people, that they really love and that they admire and that they've, listened to for years. I think it's a betrayal. I'm sure it's happened to you. Michael Jackson might be an example. I know that it was very difficult for you.
It was, yeah.
To then, I don't know how much of a fan you were, but it's really devastating, when you learn. And again, it happens, almost everyone at this point, especially if you work in a certain industry, like, someone who's been quote unquote Me Too'd, right?
Yeah.
Someone whose things have come to light that you're like, but that's not who this person is. I don't know if you saw the whole Kevin Spacey thing, but, where Sharon Stone and Liam Neeson and all these people were coming out and saying, he's a great guy, and it's like, well, I'm sure he was great to you and that, but there are dozens of men who say that he wasn't so great to them. So, but I think it must be difficult to hold.
I think in this case
truths.
right now it's going to be difficult because there's actual video. Even though people should believe and all of that, once you see it, it's hard to unsee it, unless someone's saying it's AI created
generated.
or generated of some.
Do you think that this video? Because my reaction to it was like, if this was like a white woman being thrown around like that, it wouldn't have been as easily broadcast. And like, I wonder.
Wait, what do you mean? If he did it to a white woman?
I feel that there's something very dehumanizing about the way that the video has been like spread. Where again, if this was your daughter and this was a video of her, how would you feel about this video going viral and people sharing it so liberally and like it being played on cable news? And
I don't think race plays a part of that part. Race can always play a part of something, but you have a famous person who's beating on a woman. Everyone's going to share it. If it were a white woman he was beating on, he would have been already convicted and shot and dead because that's for sure. Maybe not. Maybe that's too extreme. Well, but you know my point and what I'm saying.
The consequences would have been more.
Yeah, agreed. I think everyone's sharing it, not necessarily because it's more. Of course I wouldn't want my daughter's things shared. At the same time, I think it's good. It's horrific to watch, but when you watch it, if you are a man on the fence about how you feel about how we treat people and behavior, you see that, and how can your stomach not be like, what the you know, I think it's really important. I think so many people are talking about it right now. It's all everyone's talking about at the moment. And we're talking about why it's not okay for a man. Every news station I've been looking at, sports commentators are talking about it. I was watching ESPN Sports Center. They're talking about it. It has nothing to do with sports. And they're talking about it because it's a famous person abusing a woman that we all see. It's horrific looking. Hopefully it shakes people. That we have conversations with our boys and our kids and schools and educate our 13-year-olds, 12-year-olds that are like on that age from being a kid to being a young teenager to on their way to adulthood, so that we can re-educate and mitigate some of those behaviors that might happen. There has to be something. We have to address it, because this is not just going away. Like, we're in 2024 with cameras everywhere. Yeah. Albeit I think he was intoxicated. Maybe he didn't have his wherewithal with him like he would otherwise. But he's been doing it.
Well, he bought the footage.
So the fact that we're still doing it is still prevalent. I just want my kids, I want my neighbors' kids and the neighbors of my neighbors to not be one of the men that ever do something like that. And if we all are educating our neighborhoods and things of that nature, then that spreads out more. Yeah. Yeah, I'm so sorry for her and her family, and for women who experience this at the hands of powerful people, and even if they're not powerful, just like.
Well, it's compounded. The power dynamic, there's often a power dynamic, but yeah, in this case, it's like.
I'm holding my feelings in, because when we talk about it, I can feel myself wanting to like have some rage.
Do you want to let it out?
I want to let it out right now, just because there's enough of it in my body. But that is not acceptable on any level. Anyway, there's no excuse for it. There's his apology says something to the nature of, I was at a low point in my life. I've been at many low points in my life. You don't abuse somebody. And yet there are men that I'm sure yesterday had never abused somebody. And tomorrow they might. How do we stop them from yesterday to tomorrow? Yeah. Maybe seeing it, recognizing, oh my God. Yeah, seeing, I'm sure there are a lot of people that do something and have regret. At that point, it's too late, at least damage-wise.
You know how there's a lot of domestic violence hotlines that are devoted to women, I got one too. Getting help. There are hotlines that are starting. It's a new trend of hotlines for men to call in when they feel that they're about to do something, that they feel the violence, that they feel
a place to turn before they turn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I just think, to me, it's just like, how has it taken us this long to create more of those, right? that yes, a woman sure needs help, but there's little she can do to solve. She can't solve it.
No, it's meant to solve. Yeah.
And so I think it's a really positive step in the right direction, and we need more programs.
And speaking of hotlines and people who do this work, nomore.org, the No More Foundation, is one that we are partnered with and projects that we've been involved in. Go to nomore.org for anyone who's listening who might be experiencing some sort of abuse. There are lines and opportunities for you to have an ear and help. Yeah. Nomore.org is one. Liz, I appreciate you.
Me too.
And we have to have these conversations at the grassroots level. These conversations we're doing now on podcasts, adults are listening to, but we got to do something for our kids, for our 10-year-olds that see you and respect you and could never hurt you. And there's amazing 10-year-olds right now that are wonderful kids, and some of them will turn out to be ones that would hurt you. We got to get a hold of them. Yeah. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
How we wrap up? Why don't you wrap us out?
If you like what you heard, you can subscribe, listen to our show, menenough.com/podcast. We're on Spotify, we're on YouTube. If you want to see our faces, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts.
That's right. And maybe next time Justin will be here.
Yeah, hopefully.
Until then, I'm Jamey Heath.
I'm Liz Plank.
And this is
Man Enough.